If you had told me at the beginning of the semester that the guy who'd make me question everything would be the quiet one in the back row with the notebooks full of drawings, I would have laughed in your face. But here I am. My name's Tyler, and I'm 22, finishing up my last year of undergrad at a mid-sized university in Michigan. I study psychology, mostly because I didn't know what else to do, and I'm decent at listening to people. Life was on autopilot. Wake up, classes, part-time job at the campus bookstore, gym, ramen noodles, sleep, repeat. Then I met Ben. It wasn't even a proper meeting at first. I just noticed him. He'd always come in late to Professor Millar's abnormal psych class, sliding into the corner seat with his hood up, no laptop, just a sketch pad and a mechanical pencil. He never raised his hand, never spoke. But he'd draw. Constantly. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses of what he was working on, usually faces. Detailed, intense, almost too real. I remember one day he was sketching this guy's face from the class. The profile was so spot on, I had to stop myself from staring. We didn't talk. I barely knew his name until midterms, when the seating chart shifted and he ended up next to me. He nodded once. I nodded back. That was it. But it started something. It was subtle at first. After class, I'd catch him glancing at me. Nothing creepy. Just curious. Like he was trying to figure me out without words. Then one day, as we were walking out, it just happened. "You always tap your pen when you're bored," he said. I blinked. "What?" "You tap your pen. During lectures. Like in rhythm." I looked down at the pen in my hand. "Didn't even notice." He shrugged. "It's kind of cool. Like you're keeping time to something no one else hears." And then he walked off. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Who was this guy? The next week, I decided to sit next to him on purpose. He raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. We sat in silence, but something about it wasn't uncomfortable. After class, I asked, "You an art major?" "Nope." "What then?" "Architecture. But I suck at the math part." "Then, how'd you get in?" He smirked. "Charm." We started talking more after that, little conversations before class, longer ones after. I found out he lived alone, in a cheap, off-campus apartment. His parents lived a few hours away, but didn't really talk much. He liked late-night walks and bad horror movies. He'd done some time in community college before transferring here. He didn't do parties, didn't like loud places. He loved old buildings and hated small talk. And he was funny. In this dry, blink and you'll miss it kind of way. I didn't know what we were becoming, but it felt like something was building. Then, one rainy Thursday, he asked if I wanted to hang out at his place. "Nothing weird," he said. "Just pizza, maybe a movie." I said yes. His apartment was small and full of character, like him. Plants he barely kept alive, stacks of sketchbooks on every flat surface, half-drunk mugs of tea. It smelled faintly like cedar wood and paint. We sat on the floor with our backs against the couch, eating greasy pepperoni pizza out of the box. "Why architecture?" I asked. Ben tilted his head. "Because I like the way things fit together, and because I like old things, things that have stories but don't talk." I watched him as he spoke. His voice had a rhythm to it, soft and measured, like every word was chosen carefully. He looked at me then, eyes lingering. "Why psych?" "I like people," I said, "even when they don't make sense." He smiled at that. A small, private smile like I'd passed some kind of test. Later that night, we watched some terrible 90s slasher on his tiny TV. At some point, our shoulders touched. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. When I left, he walked me to the door. "I had fun," I said, and I meant it. "Same," he replied. There was a pause, a beat. Then he leaned in. Not all the way, just close enough. If I kissed you right now, would you stop me? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I didn't stop him. Ben's lips were warm, hesitant at first, like he wasn't sure I'd go through with it. But I didn't move, didn't flinch. I just closed my eyes and let it happen. And when I kissed him back, really kissed him, he let out this small breath, like he'd been holding it for years. It didn't last long, just a few seconds. But when we pulled away, something had changed. Not in a dramatic fireworks way. It was quieter than that. Realer. Ben stepped back, eyes flicking to the floor, then back to me. "Sorry," he said. I shook my head. "Don't be." He ran a hand through his hair, half smiling. "You're not going to make this weird, are you?" "Depends," I said, grinning. "You planning to make it weird?" He rolled his eyes, but I saw the relief behind it. No promises. After that night, things shifted. We didn't talk about it right away. The next time we saw each other in class, it was business as usual. Notes, small talk, me tapping my pen. But when class ended, he nudged me with his elbow. "Want to come over again tonight?" "Same deal?" I asked. He paused. "Maybe not exactly the same." I went. We didn't kiss that time, though. We talked. A lot. About everything. He told me about his old roommate who ghosted him halfway through the lease. About how he used to draw monsters as a kid and got in trouble for making them too violent. How his dad hadn't really been around, and his mom worked nights at a grocery store, so he'd raise himself most evenings with frozen dinners and bad TV. He told me he hadn't really done this before. "What, dating a guy?" I asked. "Dating anyone," he said. "Not like this." I looked at him. "You're doing fine." He smirked. "You say that now. Wait until I inevitably mess something up." "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "Just don't be an ass and we'll be fine." He smiled at that. A real one. That became our rhythm. Nights at his place, me bringing over takeout, him showing me old sketches, or pointing out buildings on Google Maps that he thought were hot. He meant the architecture, but I teased him for it anyway. We weren't official. We didn't even call it anything. But I started to feel it, that quiet certainty, when you know someone gets you, without you having to explain yourself all the time. One night after he fell asleep on the couch next to me, his head tilted against my shoulder, I just stared at him for a while. His face, usually guarded and sharp, was soft in sleep, vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen before. I brushed a piece of hair from his forehead and whispered, "You don't have to be so tough all the time." He didn't wake up, but I swear, he smiled. We hit our first snag a couple weeks later. It was nothing, at first, just a comment at lunch. We were at a cafe near campus, sitting close, maybe a little too close. I'd reached over to steal a fry off his plate, and he smacked my hand away, lightly, laughing. But someone at the next table noticed. A guy in a Letterman jacket, probably on the football team. He muttered something under his breath. I didn't catch it, but Ben did. His jaw tightened. He stopped laughing. The fun left his eyes. "Let's go," he said, standing too quickly. "Ben." "Not here." I followed him outside. He walked fast, hands in his pockets, not looking at me. "You okay?" I asked. He didn't answer for a beat. "I hate that," he muttered. "That look, that little smirk people get like they know something." I caught up to him, grabbing his arm. "They don't know shit. Let 'em look," he pulled away. "Easy for you to say." "What's that supposed to mean?" "You're out, you're comfortable, you're used to this." "And you're not?" Ben laughed, bitter. "No, I'm the weird kid who draws, who doesn't do parties, who doesn't know how to act right. Now I'm the weird kid who's into guys. Congrats." I stood there, hands clenched. "Is that what you think this is? A phase? A mistake?" He didn't answer, so I turned around and left. That night, he didn't text. The next day, neither did I. 2 days passed. No texts, no calls. No casual nods across the classroom, just silence, the kind that creeps in slowly and then takes up all the space. I tried to focus on other things: homework, shifts at the bookstore, even cleaning my apartment just to keep my hands busy. But my thoughts kept drifting back to Ben, his words, that wounded look in his eyes, like he'd already decided how this was going to end before I had the chance to prove him wrong. By the third night, I gave up pretending. I walked the few blocks to his apartment without telling him. I stood outside the door for a solid minute before knocking. No answer. I knocked again. Finally, I heard movement inside. When the door opened, he looked like he hadn't slept. Hoodie pulled up, hair a mess, eyes red-rimmed. He blinked at me like he wasn't sure I was real. "I brought pad thai," I said, lifting the paper bag. He didn't move, didn't speak, so I tried again. I figured if you were going to avoid me, you should at least do it with decent food in the fridge. He stepped aside silently, letting me in. The apartment was dim, the only light coming from a small lamp on his desk. Sketchbooks were piled everywhere. One of them was open, and I tried not to look, but I did anyway. It was a drawing of me, not posed or dramatic, just me, sitting on his couch, probably from a night a week ago. I was looking down, my face soft, focused. His pencil had captured something I didn't know I showed, something quiet, something real. I turned to him. "You've been drawing me?" Ben rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, sorry. I just didn't want to forget how you looked when you weren't mad at me." My chest ached. I sat down on the edge of the couch, setting the food on the coffee table. "You want to talk about it?" He shook his head at first, then stopped. "I don't know how. Every time things start feeling good, I get this voice in my head, telling me it won't last, that I'll ruin it." I leaned forward. "Ben, I'm not expecting you to be perfect. I'm not even asking for a label. I want to be around you. I like who I am when I'm with you." He sat down next to me, close but not touching. His hands were in his lap, fingers picking at the threads of his sleeves. "Do you ever feel like you're too broken for this stuff?" he asked quietly. "All the time," I said, "but maybe the point isn't being perfect. Maybe it's finding someone who doesn't flinch when they see the cracks." He looked at me then, really looked. "I flinched," he said. "Yeah," I replied, "but you opened the door." That broke something open. He reached out, slowly, like he was afraid I'd disappear. His hand found mine, tentative at first, then sure. "I missed you," he said. "Good," I replied, squeezing his hand. "Because you still owe me half the rent for that pad thai." He laughed, really laughed. And the sound made me feel like I'd won something I didn't even know I was fighting for. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't even touch much after that. We just ate, side by side, our knees touching under the table, talking about nothing and everything. I told him about my mom calling to ask if I was eating enough, and he told me about the weird dreams he'd been having where he lived in a house made entirely of glass. "It'd be a nightmare to clean," I said. "Yeah," he replied, smiling, "but you'd see everything." Things didn't magically fix themselves after that night. Ben was still Ben, still guarded, still quiet around strangers, still flinching slightly when someone looked at us a little too long on campus. But he started reaching for my hand under the table at lunch. He started texting me first, even if it was just a meme or a picture of a cat wearing a tiny hard hat. He let me into his world inch by inch, and I didn't rush him. One night, I stayed over. Not for the first time, but this time felt different. We were both half asleep on his couch, some old documentary humming in the background. My head was resting on his chest, and his fingers were tracing lazy patterns on my arm. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" he asked. I shifted slightly. "Like, after graduation?" "Yeah, jobs, apartments, grown-up shit." I exhaled. "All the time. Honestly, it freaks me out." "Same." There was a pause. "I think I want you to be in whatever's next," he said softly. My breath caught. "I mean, if that's something you want too," he added quickly, like he was afraid of his own words. I sat up just enough to look at him. "Ben, I'm not going anywhere." He smiled, one of those rare, full smiles that made his whole face light up. "I've never felt like this before," he said. "With anyone. You don't have to compare it to anything," I replied. "We're just figuring it out, together." He pulled me back into his arms, and we stayed like that for a long time. The TV droned on. The city outside our window moved without us, but it didn't matter. There was a kind of peace in that moment I hadn't felt in a long time. Not just comfort, security, that feeling that someone was finally choosing me. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The following weekend, I invited Ben to my place for the first time. He looked around like he was stepping into some museum. "Your couch doesn't suck," he said. "High praise," I replied. He smirked. I was expecting it to be covered in throw pillows and smell like incense. "I'm not that gay," I said. Yet. We ordered Thai food again, out of superstition more than craving. Ben sat cross-legged on the floor, flipping through one of my psych textbooks while I tried to assemble an IKEA shelf I'd been putting off for weeks. "You know this isn't how bolts are supposed to go, right?" he asked, watching me jam one in backward. "You could help," he shrugged. "I could. Or I could watch you struggle and find it deeply entertaining." "You're such an ass," I said, laughing. But a minute later, he was beside me, tightening screws like a pro. "Grew up fixing stuff," he said. "My mom's car was always falling apart." I looked at him. He didn't talk about his mom much. "She still live back home?" He nodded. "Same tiny house. Still works nights. I visit when I can." "You ever tell her about us?" He hesitated. "Not yet." I didn't push. Just nodded and went back to the shelf. But later that night, as we lay in bed, the shelf still missing a few screws, he whispered, "I want to. I just need time." I kissed his shoulder. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time, I think he believed me. Spring came late that year, the kind where you start leaving your jacket at home and regret it by sundown. But something about the cold didn't bother me as much anymore. Maybe it was because of Ben. We were in this quiet, comfortable phase of figuring each other out. Not the honeymoon stage where everything is fireworks and flirting, but the part where things settle into a rhythm. Where you learn how they take their coffee, or what song they hum when they're half asleep, or how their mood changes when they get overstimulated. I'd never been in anything like it. One Thursday, we got caught in a downpour walking back from a late lecture. Neither of us had umbrellas. The rain soaked us fast, turning our jeans to heavy denim slush, but Ben just laughed. "You look like a sad, wet dog," he said, squinting through the water dripping off his lashes. "And you look like you walked out of a depressing indie film." I shot back. We raced the last block to his apartment. By the time we stumbled inside, dripping and breathless, he grabbed towels from the bathroom and tossed one at me. Then he looked at me, really looked, and grinned. "What?" I asked. "You look good like this," he said. "A little messy, less put together." "I think that's just my nose running." He stepped closer, towel around his neck, and pulled me into a kiss. Wet clothes and all. We stood there in his hallway, kissing slowly, like the world had narrowed down to the warmth between us. And then something shifted. We didn't talk about it. We didn't need to. That night, in his bed, things went further. It wasn't rushed or dramatic. It was careful, honest. The kind of moment where you don't just want to be close, you need to be. We moved slow, asking with touches, answering with silence. There was nervous laughter, whispered okays, and more eye contact than I knew what to do with. Afterward, we lay tangled in the sheets, neither of us saying much. Just the sound of the city outside, and our breathing slowly returning to normal. Ben turned toward me, his hair still damp. "Was that okay?" I nodded, fingers tracing his shoulder. "More than okay," he exhaled. "I've never, with anyone." "I kind of figured," I said, smiling gently. "You didn't make me feel stupid," he added, voice quiet. "You're not." He looked at me then, that same searching gaze he'd had the first time we talked outside of class. "Why me?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. "Because you see things most people miss," I finally said. "Because you make me feel seen." Ben blinked fast. like he was processing that in real time. Then he leaned in, pressing his forehead to mine. "I don't know how to be someone's boyfriend," he whispered. "You don't have to know," I replied. "You just have to want to try." We fell asleep that night in a way I hadn't in a long time. Safe, like I wasn't waiting for something to go wrong. Like maybe this could be real. I think the moment I realized this was more than just something casual was when I caught myself looking at apartments online, ones with 2 bedrooms. Not because we were moving in together, we hadn't even joked about that yet, but something in me had started quietly planning for a future where Ben was still around, where I didn't have to text him to see if we were hanging out that night because he'd already be there, stealing my hoodies and burning the toast. He didn't know I was looking. I wasn't even sure I was ready to tell him. It just felt like this undercurrent, something steady beneath all the chaos. But not everything was smooth. One night, we were walking near the edge of campus, talking about finals, when we ran into a guy Ben used to know. His name was Kyle. Tall, loud, the kind of guy who still peaked in undergrad but didn't know it yet. "Yo, Benji," he called, jogging over. "Long time, man. Thought you dropped off the face of the earth." Ben stiffened beside me. "Yeah, been busy." Kyle barely looked at me before launching into some story about a house party and how they'd totally trashed some guy's backyard last spring. I watched Ben's face, how he nodded politely but didn't really engage. Then Kyle looked at me. "You his roommate or something?" Before I could answer, Ben cut in. "Yeah." My stomach dropped a little. He didn't meet my eyes. Kyle smirked. Cool. Well, I'll catch you around, man." When he was gone, I said nothing for a block. Just walked. Ben finally broke the silence. That wasn't the moment. What? To explain everything. That wasn't the time. I nodded. Slowly. "You don't have to explain." "But lying kinda stung," he winced. "I didn't mean to. It just came out." I stopped walking. "Do you not want people to know?" He turned toward me. His eyes were tired. "I don't know. Sometimes I think I do. And then I remember all the reasons I didn't before." "Your mom?" He nodded. "And your friends?" "Mostly ex-friends at this point." I wanted to say something comforting, something that wouldn't sound like pressure, but all I said was, "I like being with you. I just don't want to feel like a secret." Ben stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're not really. It's just hard to unlearn years of hiding." I nodded. "I get it. Just don't shut me out, okay?" He nodded back. "I'm trying," and I believed him. 2 weeks later, he posted a picture of us on his Instagram story. Nothing major. Just a blurry photo of us on the couch. Me laughing, him in profile. Sketchbook on his lap. The caption just said, "My favorite view." I didn't even see it until someone from our psych class DM'd me about it. Ben didn't say anything when I brought it up. He just looked at me and smiled. Like it was no big deal. But it was. It was huge. Graduation came faster than either of us expected. Suddenly, everything was about cap and gown orders, last papers, friends planning cross-country moves or job interviews or gap year trips abroad. The energy on campus buzzed with excitement and low-key panic. Ben and I hadn't talked about what came next. Not really, not seriously. Until one night, walking home from a friend's barbecue, tipsy and warm from the beer and the heat, he said, "So I got offered a position." I stopped mid-step. "What kind of position?" "An internship, architecture firm in Chicago. One of the good ones." I blinked. "That's amazing." He nodded, but didn't smile. "It's full-time. Could turn into something long-term." I tried to keep my voice steady. "When would you leave?" "June." "A month." We had one more month. "Are you going to take it?" I asked, already knowing the answer. He looked at me, conflicted. "I want to. I think I need to." And I understood. Of course I did. But that didn't make it easier. We didn't fight. We didn't make it dramatic. But the air shifted after that. Everything we did suddenly had an expiration date attached. Last movie night, Last walk home from class. Last Sunday morning at the coffee shop, where he'd always draw people in the corner without them noticing. One night we were lying in bed, the window cracked open, summer just starting to creep in. I rolled onto my side and asked, "Do you think we were just a college thing?" Ben looked at me, quiet. Then, "No." "Then what were we?" He reached out, fingers brushing my chest. "Maybe we were the beginning." I stared at him. "You really think that?" "I don't know what comes next," he said. "But you're the first person who ever made me think I could want more, who made it feel possible." The last night we spent together, we didn't talk much. We just held on to each other. I memorized the shape of him, the smell of his skin, the sound of his laugh echoing through my apartment. The next morning, he packed a small suitcase and stood in my doorway. "I hate goodbyes," he said, "so don't say one." He nodded, stepped forward, and kissed me once, slow, and full of things we weren't quite ready to name. Then he left. And for a while, it hurt. Waking up alone again, walking past places that used to mean something, feeling like part of my routine was missing. But time did what it always does. It moved forward. The pain dulled. I started to smile at the memories instead of ache with them. And then, 3 months later, on a random Tuesday, I got a package in the mail. No return address, just my name. Inside was a sketchbook. The first page was a drawing of us on the couch, the same one from his Instagram story. But there were more, dozens of them. Me making coffee, us walking, laughing. One of me sleeping, hair messy, mouth slightly open. And on the last page, a drawing of him, smiling. Beneath it, in tiny handwriting, "Still my favorite view. Room for 2 in Chicago if you're ever ready." I sat down on the floor, heart pounding, and I realized I was.